Hey guys, Youngblood with you for the 63rd episode of the Inbox. Starting off with a question from Ozzy Mendias. Says, do you think that the Terrapin can be outfitted with void armor a la Ghost Hornet? Maybe with sacrificing the radar dish utility hardpoint, kind of like a Hornet tracker to Hornet Ghost. Okay, so I think you could technically probably slap some void armor on the Terrapin. I think that would be an interesting direction to take the ship, but if you're kind of looking to sit in the shadows and see as many people from as far off as possible, yeah, I think you could probably do that. Now, you're going to be severely impacting the overall, I guess, perk of the turtle portion of the ship, as it's no longer going to be very sturdy. And when you take into consideration the fact that the ship's not fast or agile, if you are seen, it's going to be problematic. Additionally, the ship is known to be very hot, meaning that it's putting out a lot of signature. So the void armor is going to help with some of the cross-section signature, but unless you have really good coolers or other things in there, you're probably going to be putting out a lot of EM and IR waves anyways. So you're probably not going to be all that hidden, meaning you're probably going to be better off just sticking with the standard heavy armor. As far as just replacing that radar dish utility hardpoint, yeah, you should be able to swap that out with various different things. I don't know if there's going to be a specially made cooler that you can slap in there, but again, if you're taking off that radar dish, then all of a sudden you're losing out on the ability to be durable and see far, which then means the ship doesn't have a lot of value because it doesn't have the firepower or the speed to be like a stealth attack ship. If it no longer has a good radar, it's going to have a harder time actually taking on any role, and that way it doesn't carry cargo. So the changes you're talking about are interesting, but I don't think they'd be very effective if you can do them. Question from Keep It Positive. Great vid. What do you think about the Origin 300 series? There's supposed to be an update pass, so when do you think that'll happen? And what do you want to see in a redesigned 300 series? Yeah, that is planned. I think the people that are working on the Cutlass are going to switch over to the 300 series when they're done with that. That's all due to, I guess, there's prioritization that'll probably take place, so I think it's scheduled to come shortly after the Cutlass, if I remember right. As far as what I want to see out of it, the interior design of the ship right now is very, very poor. It's not a good usage of space. You don't get a lot of firepower. The flight model is just kind of okay. The cargo is weird. It's supposed to be a luxury ship, but it doesn't feel luxurious on the inside. So I think what needs to happen is it probably needs to grow in size just a little bit, and I think they need to kind of place out some of the things a little bit differently. If it's meant to carry cargo internally, then it needs a little bit more openness in that canopy on the inside. If it's meant to be more luxurious, then it needs to have something other than a cot that just kind of folds out. So I think the overall design of the ship and the look of the ship both need to have adjustments made to them. But I think the functionality-wise, I think it does okay. It's outclassed in a lot of ways, but really it's more of a general purpose ship anyways. So the variants do a little bit better than just the 300i. But the interior is what I think needs the most work. And I hope it gets a lot of TLC because the outside of the ship is beautiful. It's still one of my favorite designs of a ship in the game. But I think as far as the way it utilizes that space, that's what needs a lot of work. A Swedish youth humanist says, should pirates and outlaws really be able to insure their ships? Yeah, I think so for a couple of reasons. One, from a gameplay perspective, pirates and outlaws are an important piece of the game, whether you want to, I guess, like that or not. They need to be there and able to kind of provide balance, to provide gameplay options for us. There's a lot of things that go into piracy and outlaws that a lot of people aren't going to agree with, but it provides depth and immersion and action to the game, and it's something we really need to have. So if you have a system in place that doesn't allow them the same benefits as somebody who follows the law, at least with something as crucial as like insuring your ship that you paid real money for, nobody's going to take on that role. So you can implement it in a different way, though. You could maybe say that there are, I don't know, sketchier types of, I guess, organizations that are willing to insure those that are out there doing piracy. There might even be like a pirate insurance company that's willing to do that, but they charge more or something like that. The other thing that's going to go into this is nobody's going to label themselves as a pirate. They're not going to go to State Farm and say, oh yeah, I'd like to insure my boat because I'm a pirate. They're going to look at your record and say, okay, based on this analysis, this is what your rate is going to be. So if you're known to maybe have more ships destroyed or take on more damage and those types of things based on your activities, which may happen to be piracy, then you're probably going to have a higher deductible or something like that. So there's different ways they can do it in the game, but there's no way they're going to say just, no, you can't be insured if you're a pirate or an outlaw. Now, you might not be able to insure a stolen ship, but maybe that's changed based on if you pay the extra money or spend the time to learn how to do it. If you can change the transponder on the ship to have a unique ID, then maybe you're able to do it because it looks like your ship at that point. Justicar AB says, question, I have a Reclaimer, Carrick, Orion, and a whole C. I intend to have a small company of search, Carrick, for recovered deep Rex Reclaimer and deep valuable mining minerals, the Orion. Then use the hauler Hull C to transport and trade the huge payload that I gathered from deep space, and a freelancer to start off with because I had money left over from melting ships. Is this a good strategy? I did have a little bit of everything, and I felt like I had too many ships with little reason for having them all, so I decided to get the ships that work together, and that makes sense. In theory, I think that makes a lot of sense. You use your Carrick, you go find something valuable, and then you bring the appropriate ship in to do the work. Keep in mind, you're talking about the Reclaimer, which is a big ship, the Orion, which is a big ship. Both of those require a crew of at least 4. The Carrick can probably be done with 3, but you probably are going to be better off having a few more. So if you're trying to run them in tandem, you're all of a sudden talking about a situation where you really need to have like 8 people or 8 NPCs. So that could potentially be pretty expensive. So I think having a more multi-purpose ship in there may be something that would give you some value. Now, having the ability to do the freelancer to start off with, I think that's a good addition to your fleet because you want something on a smaller scale as well. But I think you need to be ready to either have people that are willing to fly your ships for you, be ready to shell out for NPCs, and then realize that you've got to have situations where you're going to have a hard time controlling things because I don't think you're going to have the ability to send one of your ships out doing one thing in a different system, sending another ship out doing another thing in a different system. There's probably going to be restrictions in how you can use other NPCs taking your ships. Like you can hire an NPC to fly one of your ships, but it needs to come along with you. So maybe you've got your Carrick going out there and then you've got your Orion that's following you and some NPC is flying your Orion. But they're also going to be racking up cost as you fly. And then you run into situations where the Orion isn't going to have the same range as something like a Carrick. So you're going to have to stop, refill, and then continue on your journey. So if your plan is more of I'm going out in my Carrick, I'm going to go find something, I'm going to make a note of where it is, I'm going to come back, I'm going to get my other ship, and then I'm going to go out to it, and then I'm going to use my Orion to mine all those goods, that's a good plan. But then as far as that goes, then you get into the second piece of that leg where you need the transport. So if you're planning on offloading things to the whole sea so you can continue to mine at this location, when you go back, then you need to fly your Orion and have an NPC fly your whole sea. And then you've got 2 ships that are sitting there just kind of racking up cost while they're there. So there's some additional complications based on your plan that I think you want to really work through and keep an eye on the way that CIG is starting to implement NPCs into the game to see if it ends up working out in the long term for you. Bam Mitchell's 8 says, will we be able to shoot our weapons in cities? Not that I'm planning on shooting up an entire town, but I think it would be cool as a bounty hunter if you walked into a bar and saw your target, then the 2 of you had a little shootout or a chase through the city. Yeah, I think you're going to be able to do that. It is an interesting question because today, in the armistice zones, you're not able to do that. You would assume that a space station is going to be very similar to a city. I think that's more because there's not any consequences in the game today. The ability of a advocacy pilot coming in and trying to resolve things is kind of limited because you can just fly off. But as bounties start to catch up and you've got more like police presence in the planets, if you see each other in a bar and you start shooting, there's probably going to be real consequences there. If you try and shoot your target and you end up shooting somebody else, you're probably going to become very wanted for maybe even being a murderer. So there's going to be consequences for your actions. But I think knowing that bounty hunting is a thing and that they've talked about the ability to kind of capture people on planet, they have to give you the ability to use your weapons. And I don't think there's going to be random restrictions like saying you can't use your weapon. Well, there's nothing that would prevent me from doing that today. I could technically walk into a bar, pull out a pistol. There's no overwhelming force or metaphysical thing that's going to just be implanted in me by the city that's going to prevent me from doing that. So I don't think there's going to be that random restriction in place, but I think there's going to be very real consequences for your actions. Joe Bean says, in Star Citizen, me and my cousin want to be explorers, treasure hunters, and we currently have a Caterpillar. Do you think that the Cat would be a good treasure hunting ship with all the modularity it has? And do you think it would be able to carry an Ursa rover? The easy one there is yes, the Ursa rover should definitely fit in the Caterpillar. Where it gets more complicated is your treasure hunting thing. I don't know how much treasure hunting there's going to be. There's going to be salvage where you go out and you actually try and find wrecked ships that are going to have goods on them. And then there's going to be things like you going to planet side trying to find things that are interesting and valuable and bringing those home with you. But I don't think you're going to walk into a cave and find a pot of gold. So But if you look at the Caterpillar and say, what does it do well? It should be an adequate explorer. It should be really good. It should be pretty decent at salvage. It's pretty good at cargo. It can land on planet side. So from those perspectives, I think the ship does what you want it to do. The question is going to be more specifically to what you want to do from a treasure hunting perspective and whether that's going to be supported in the game or not. And the last two questions are patron questions, starting off with Pup Shepherd. Says, will the female avatar be available in 3.0? I don't know. I think it depends on how long 3.0 actually takes to be released. If 3.0 comes in the next month or two, I would say the female character probably doesn't make it. If 3.0 doesn't get released until like summer, then I think there's a very real possibility. I don't think there's anything that's taking place in the development of 3.0 that's contingent on the female character, or I don't think there's any blockers for the female character that would prevent 3.0 from being released. I don't think the two have anything to do with each other, so I think whenever the female avatar is available, it'll be in the game. It's just a question of when 3.0 gets released and if the character's ready by that point or not. My gut says that we're probably talking about summertime for 3.0, unfortunately. And if that ends up being the case, then I would say, yeah, I think the female avatar would probably make it in at that point. And the last question is from Rockseeker. Says, another one for you. Can you explain the megamap that CIG mentioned for 2.6.2 is all about? You may rephrase the question as needed to make it more clear. No, I think that's perfectly fine. So Megamap is essentially a loading, kind of like a loading program. I think the best way to probably think about this is that scene in The Matrix where they kind of go into that white room and they can load various things like weapons training or, the combat scenes. Basically, you're in an environment that can quickly change and have other things loaded into it. It's basically a level that other levels can be layered on top of. So if you're talking about what that means in 2.6.2, basically that means that all the single player functions right now are essentially all within the Megamap, and it's going to be expanded from there. So today, if you're in your, if you are in the main menu, you're in the Megamap, and then you go to Hangar. Hangar is going to load almost instantaneously. And then from the Hangar, if you go into a single-player free flight, the single-player free flight is going to open almost instantaneously because you're all within the construct of the Megamap. Now, if you go from the Hangar to Persistent Universe, the Persistent Universe isn't in the Megamap yet because it's multiplayer. So that's when you get the loading screen, and it takes a lot longer. The plan is to basically get everything living within Megamap, and then all of a sudden everything's going to load faster. And that's an important step towards, moving between kind of like instances and servers and, travel times and all of those sorts of things. It's going to cut down on loading. It's going to make for seamless transitions. Like all of those types of things are a benefit of the Megamap, and that's kind of what it is. The overall construct that we're playing in, even though the individual levels that we're seeing are a little bit different. So that's it for this episode of The Inbox. If you guys have questions, please get them in. Otherwise, stay tuned for more coming soon, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.